Okay, so the I am just gonna start with saying that I'm very tired of this. Honestly, I am. So I wanted to do a video on it. All my research, I will have the sources in the description so you can check them out as well. Because I'm just tired of hearing the same excuses, the same things, and the U.S. thinking that that there's, that they're the only country with gun violence, and that we can't do anything because it's just you know, or the fact that they're like gun violence, video games, mental illness, and it's like, you think the US is the only place with video games and mental illness? Like, okay, sure. So, I'm gonna start with some excuses that government officials have given during the last shooting. So, the president proclaimed mental illness and hate pulls triggers, not the guns. So, we're just gonna start with that, we're just gonna give that opener. Now, Ohio State, Candace Keller, she proclaimed the blame on breakdown of the traditional American home, transgender, homosexual marriage, and drag queen advocates, fatherless, violent video games, open borders, marijuana, lack of God and church. So essentially, she placed blame on everything else except the guns. And that is just a lot of things that, like I said, you can witness in other countries. The US is not the only country with transgender individuals, with homosexual marriage, with fatherless homes. Okay, so we're gonna start with the main things, which are video games and mental health. Now, I ask you, like I said, I have a script, so I'm gonna be looking back and forth because I ramble a lot and I kind of want to keep everything very concise and very so now, I ask you, do these two criteria not exist all over the world? Do people believe that video games don't exist in other countries? Why aren't we seeing this everywhere? I mean, if video games and mental illness, triggered gun violence, well, we would all be dead, everywhere. There would be no more people, because, we would have, I bet, multiple mass shootings all over the world daily, every second. Just picture how many people are in the world who play video games, who have mental illness, and just picture that all of them are bad people. Okay, sure. But that doesn't happen, does it? It doesn't. So, thoughts and prayers don't work. They genuinely don't. They're a nice sentiment, but people are using it to fall back of I already gave my thoughts and prayers, so we don't have to do anything, and that's not how it works. But they mean nothing coming from officials who have the capacity and the power to make change, but they refuse to because they're under a payroll and are monetarily being compensated to keep pushing back laws that, can change gun laws. So my question that I always ask about anything regarding politics is, where is the humanity? Where is the humane aspect of, being in government is supposed to be, you're supposed to be proud to be there. You're supposed to help humans and, the town, the people. And like I said, the government was established to help men, but now it's there to buy a boat or travel to Europe or buy a castle, and it's not used how it was meant to be. Now, I'm going to preface that I live in Colombia, so corruption runs deep in the government. It's the way it's been for years. And I understand the government officials not placing the needs of people in front of how much money they're going to get by ignoring starving children, cutting costs in the mathematical areas. It's a whole thing here. And I will admit, we do have different types of violence in the US. For example, in Colombia, there's kidnapping, there's extortion, there's hitmen, and you're probably freaking out right now when you hear those words. You're like, what? But it's not that. I said I'm not afraid to go to the movies. I'm not afraid to go to any religious temple or event. I'm not afraid to go to the movies, to the festivals, anything like that. I'm not afraid of becoming a victim of mass shooting. Now, I am afraid of being, robbed or pickpocketed or, but mass shootings aren't a thing here in Colombia, which is, according to Trump, a shit country, and everyone, and it's a third world country, and there are no mass shootings here to that compared to the US. Now, there is, in Colombia, a illegal paramilitary group that is kind of in a fight with the army, and unfortunately they are victims, natives, and people who just live in those type of tropical regions that are being, massacred, who are being killed. But I want to focus on shootings specifically, and so they don't occur to what you're believing. So I'm not saying that gun violence doesn't exist, because it does, but near the city, in different conditions, it's different. So in a third world country, which we already know what President Trump thinks about those, and so I'm going to give you facts, because facts are important, and facts don't take in consideration to emotions or anything. They're just facts. Now, first, let's start with regulations, okay? So in Colombia, only licensed gun owners may lawfully acquire, possess, or transfer a firearm or ammunition. Applicants need to establish a genuine reason to possess a firearm. Example could be personal protection, security, hunting, target shooting, or collection, and the minimum age is 18. You must pass a background check, criminal, mental health, and addiction records. You have to have all those good to go. If there's past history of family violence, the license will be revoked or denied. Gun owners must reapply and requalify for their firearm every 10 years. For firearms, they're not to be carried outside your house or property, and 3 years for self-defense, and 1 year for restricted weapons. Now, to carry a weapon in plain view, there needs to be a valid permit as well as a concealed firearm. In 2017, there was an estimated number of that's a lot of numbers, so I'm just gonna read them out. 4,97130 guns, illicit and illicit, so like illegal and illegal. Civilians are not allowed to possess pistols or revolvers of caliber superior to 9.652 millimeters, automatic arms, semi-automatic rifles, and carbiners over .22 calibers, arms with military-style devices such as infrared and laser sights, grenade launchers, and silencers, and explosive, toxic, expanding, and fragmenting ammunition. Those are the things that civilians are not allowed to have, okay? All that. And in Colombia, private possession of fully automatic weapons is prohibited with only narrow exceptions. To obtain for a semi-automatic or automatic weapon, applicants must appeal to the Arms Committee of the Defense Ministry. All guns must be registered with the military, which maintains a national gun registry. You hear that? Like, okay. Interesting, right? So let's start some statistic on mental health, because mental health is another excuse, right? That's another thing that just keeps popping up everywhere. Now, according to the World Health Organization, in 2018, 4.7% of Colombians suffer from depression, a percentage higher than the world average. Okay, so if that was going on, the whole depression equals mass shootings, Colombia would have a ton of mass shootings, which they don't. 2 out of every 100 Colombians suffer from bipolar affective disorder. 80% of Colombians have presented between 1 and 3 symptoms of depression at some point of their life, and 25% are children and adolescent. And Bogota has the highest frequency of symptoms of mental disorder, and between people from 18 to 48, they present, anxiety, depression, and psychosis. So those are just facts that I'm giving to you, and you can kind of create a picture of what I'm trying to tell you. But essentially what I'm trying to tell you with giving you these little facts and everything is that don't let yourself be blinded about the fact that they want to sell this picture that, the US can't be changed, there can't be progress, and there's nothing that you can do, and that's how you have to live. Like, in Colombia, in schools, there are no, those things, the metal detectors, we don't have that. We don't have armed guards in the classroom. The US is living like if they've lived in a worst third world country, and it's embarrassing, the fact that you have the potential, the resources, the initiative to change, but because of money, because of things like that, you just have government officials that won't. And I really kind of want people to fight for their rights and fight for the right to have good quality of life, and the US is not living a good quality of life. I saw a video where in Times Square a motorcycle reeved or backfired or something, and people just ran thinking that it's a shooter. You literally are living in horrible conditions. You're living like if you are in a dictator oriented country, and it's just keep an open mentality, look at other countries and how they've handled gun violence or guns, and just know that there can be change, and it really does go down to the people, because unfortunately government officials are not doing what they should be doing, which is protecting human life. They're just butchering it. So take a stand, fight for what you believe in, and I hope everything changes.